It's bowl game or bust for Virginia in 2025. Tony Elliott enters year 4 in Charlottesville firmly on the hot seat, knowing he will be gone if he can't lead Virginia to at least 6 wins. He's just 11 in 23 in 3 seasons with the Cavaliers, but last year was a solid year for him. 5-7, his best year yet. And now, entering 2025, he has his best team yet in a fairly favorable schedule. Could this be the year for Virginia? We're about to find out. Last year they went 5-7, as we mentioned. They started 4-1. Things were looking good, but they had some heartbreaking losses. 4-1, lost at home by 14 points to Maryland. That was the one loss early in the year. That was a game that many thought Virginia could win. Ended up getting torched by the Terrapins, who did not have a good season. And they lost a heartbreaker to Louisville by 4 points. Cardinals scoring late to get that win. They win just one of those games, they go bowling, and maybe the pressure's a little bit off. Now it's all on. You take a look at the team. Why is this the best team yet for Virginia? Why is this the best team yet for Virginia with Tony Elliott? Well, they've got a dang good quarterback coming in. Chandler Morris, transferring in from North Texas, son of Chad Morris, who's not a great football coach, but he produced a pretty good football player's son. Chandler Morris, 3,700 plus yards, 31 touchdowns at North Texas last year, was an all-conference selection. This offense has not eclipsed 24 points per game yet under Tony Elliott. This could be the year they finally do it with a very good quarterback who can absolutely sling it. They got some solid transfers coming in to help him out at wide receiver. You got Cameron Ross coming in from James Madison. Yeah, you got Jamal Edring coming in from Purdue, and they do return Trell Harris. Xavier Brown is back at running back, rushed for over 480 yards last year, averaged 6.1 yards per carry. The offensive line was not very good last year. They gave up 47 sacks. Tony Elliott addressed that in the transfer portal. 8 transfers coming in on the offensive line. Now, much bigger, much stronger, with a combined 182 starts up front. So Virginia's got better quarterback play. They've got some weapons at running back, weapons at wide receiver, a stronger offensive line. This is looking to be the best offense that he's had in his 4 years here. Defensively, need a little bit of work. 8 starters are back. They gave up nearly 30 points per game, 28.8 to be exact. Gave up over 408 yards per game and about 263 passing yards per game. Need a lot of help in that secondary. 4 of their top 5 tacklers do return this year, though, for Virginia. That's massive for them. They are led, of course, by Cam Robinson, who had 5 of the 19 sacks for Virginia last year. Think about that. 5 of 19. To break that down percentages, pretty dang good for Cam Robinson. He returns at linebacker alongside James Jackson and Trey McDonald. The defensive line looking to be pretty solid right now. Fisher Carmack comes in from UNLV, so they added some size into the transfer portal. They add in Jacob Holmes from Fresno State, some Mountain West additions there. And then Jameer Carter returns at nose tackle. They now go from 2 players to 4 players that weigh at least 300 pounds up front on the defensive line. So Tony Elliott clearly made it a priority to get stronger and bigger and heavier in the trenches, both offensive line and defensive line. Virginia has clearly done that. The secondary needs improvement, but does look solid. They return Antonio Clary from injury. He was out for the year around week 6 of last season, but was having a phenomenal year up to that point. Was the number 1 tackler on the team when he went down with his injury. He does return. They add Devin Neal, second team All-ACC at Louisville back in 2023, and then Donovan Platt transferring in from Army as well. So a Virginia team that's loaded with transfers, hoping they can all gel quick enough to get this team to at least 6 wins. That's all they need. Obviously, anything more than that would be phenomenal, but 6-6 gets you to the postseason, gets them to a bowl game, and saves Tony Elliott's job. Take a look at the schedule. Let's get into this. Open the year up against Coastal Carolina. That's a win. They're going to beat the Chanticleers, who they torched last year, 43-24. Coastal has some major questions across the board. Went just 6-7 last year. Only 9 starters are back. Gave up over 186 rushing yards per game last year. This could be a game where Chandler Morris obviously kind of eases into things. Maybe doesn't have to do as much as he's going to be expected to do later because Virginia just runs all over them. So a big win for them to kick off the year. Great opportunity for these new transfers to kind of figure some things out, build some chemistry in a real game situation. The Cavs are 1-0. They go on the road to NC State, a non-conference game, mind you. It's weird. Because of the additions of Stanford and California and SMU and everything like that, the ACC had to change some of the scheduling around, and so this is a non-conference game between Virginia and NC State. So if one of these teams were in the running for a conference championship by the season's end, which is probably very unlikely, but if they were, would not impact them. This is going to be a loss for Virginia. They have not defeated NC State since 2012, but Granted, they've only played them 3 times since then. They're 2-4 in their last 6 ACC road openers, so not a good mark there. This is an NC State team that I think is going to bounce back, not in a massive way, but they've got talent. CJ Bailey has a lot of promise at quarterback. They've got more weapons on offense than you think, and the defense is loaded with transfers. I'm really curious to see how quickly they gel, because last year was a very uncharacteristic year for Dave Doeren's squad. I think NC State gets back to that hard-nosed defense that we've been used to seeing, and I think they're going to give Chandler Morris a little bit of issues in this game, especially with them having home field advantage. So Virginia drops it. They're 1-1, but let's make them 3-1 with back-to-back wins over William & Mary and Stanford, who will arguably be the worst team in the conference this year. So off to a strong start. They were 4-1 last year. We've got them at 3-1 now. Now it's time to get into the bulk of conference play. And what a way to open up. Back-to-back games against Florida State and Louisville. I know they're going to beat Stanford. That's a conference game. But Florida State and Louisville really getting into it. I think they're going to lose both of those. And I know a lot of people might be inclined to pick Florida State. You might be inclined to pick them to beat Louisville because they almost beat Louisville last year. But we'll start with Florida State. This game, I think it's close. I really do. I think it's close. Because this, like the NC State game, like a handful of other teams we're going to talk about, is a Florida State team that their whole season once again relies on transfers. How quickly do the transfers gel? Last year, didn't turn out very well for them, right? A team with tons of transfers, and they went 2-10. Absolutely horrendous. I've got a feeling this year's a little bit different for the Seminoles. I'm not saying they're going to return to 2023 form where they're competing for a playoff spot or anything like that, but they're going to be much more competitive. They're going to be much better in the trenches than they were last year. Arguably better quarterback play. Can't get much worse than what DJ Uiagalelei produced. Thomas Castellanos, I think, can provide that spark offensively that Florida State needs, especially with his dual threat capability. The defense should be much better with 8 guys back. I like this Florida State team enough to come on the road and get this win. Again, I do think it will be close. I think this could maybe be similar to that Louisville game that Virginia had last year. Close into the fourth quarter, Florida State scores late or pulls away. The Seminoles get the win, and then you go on the road to Louisville, who's been almost unstoppable at home under Jeff Brom. A phenomenal home record in his very short time back with the program. They lost 24-20 last year to the Cardinals, allowing that game-winning touchdown with 1:55 left. Now you got to go on the road to a team that has 16 starters returning. Phenomenal core of running backs. Miller Moss is going to do great in this offense at quarterback. 4 of their top 6 tacklers returning. I mean, this is a Louisville team that's, to me, a true ACC title contender, and I just don't think Virginia has enough to beat them on the road, despite playing them so close at home last year. So we're kind of seeing a similar pattern here. You saw Virginia get off to a strong start, 3-1. Now they've lost back-to-back. They're back at 500 halfway through the year. They've got to figure something out. That's kind of what happened last year. 4-1 start. It all kind of came crumbling down very quickly after that. You come out of the bye week, they have an intriguing non-conference game against Washington State. I really like this game. I really like how interesting Washington State's schedule is. They've got this non-conference game at Virginia. They play Ole Miss in October as well. It's just an interesting way of these power teams playing Washington State or Oregon State like middle of the year. I don't know. I think it's pretty fun. This is a Washington State team, though, that is in a bit of a rebuild mode. They hired a new coach in Jimmy Rogers because their former coach, Jake Dicker, is now in the ACC with Wake Forest. Rogers coming in from South Dakota State, where he did a great job, but practically brings in a completely new team. I mean, practically the entire South Dakota State roster almost coming with him to Pullman. And I don't think they have enough to win this game in Charlottesville. I like this Virginia team a lot more here. Off the week of rest against a Cougars team that's got some questions. I mean, again, with so many new pieces, does have some questions in the secondary. It looks strong on paper. Will it be strong against this elite of a quarterback in Chandler Morris? I'm going to say no. Virginia gets the win. They're 4-3. And they lose on the road to North Carolina. They're 4-4, so we've alternated a win and a loss here. This North Carolina team, they lost to 41-14 last year. And now you've got a UNC team now that has home field advantage, has got the best football coach of all time, arguably, in Bill Belichick, leading them, at least best pro coach, but an elite coach in Bill Belichick who knows how to coach up a defense. They've got a dangerous dual-threat quarterback in Gio Lopez coming in from South Alabama, who I think will thrive in this offense. North Carolina wasn't that great last year, and they torched Virginia, who was mediocre, obviously, at 5-7. Now, you could argue both teams have gotten a little bit better. If that's the case, I'm picking UNC, especially with home field advantage. So North Carolina gets this win, 4-4. Virginia stays on the road, goes all the way out west to take on California, traveling over 2,800 miles to take on the Golden Bears. Typically a long road trip. Typically I'm hesitant to pick teams when they go that far. I think the jet lag's real. I think the focus isn't always there, but it will be for Tony Elliott's squad. They know their backs are against the wall. They know time is running out, and this California team isn't that good. The Golden Bears, I think, will struggle mightily, and this is a game also between two coaches that are on the hot seat. I mean, Justin Wilcox very well could be gone by the end of this year if he can't pull a rabbit out of his hat and get California to a bowl game. I don't think they probably will do that. Time will tell. But California, with so many questions, practically losing their entire team from last year, won't stand much of a chance against this Virginia offense. The Cavaliers win that game. They're 5-4, and then back home against Wake Forest, they go bowling, baby. They're going to beat the Demon Deacons, and Tony Elliott saves his job with 3 weeks to spare. How about that? I mean, they're going to get to their 6th win on November 8th with 3 weeks left in the regular season. They've only beat Wake Forest by 1 last year, but now, as we mentioned, Jake Dickert, the former Washington State head coach, is now the head coach in Winston-Salem. He's got a decent squad. I think he'll have them competitive. I think Dickert's actually a really underrated coach, but at home, knowing they can take care of business and get it done, especially look at the schedule at Duke and then Virginia Tech, who they typically don't play well against, you feel like you got to win this game, and they will. Virginia will. They will deliver. They get the win. They're 6-4. They're going bowling, and that's good because they're not going to win their last 2. They're going to lose to Duke on the road. Chandler Morris against this very strong Duke defense, an underrated Duke secondary, I should add. Darian Mensah, now the new quarterback at Duke, transferring in from Tulane. And this offense, I think, can hang with Chandler Morris in the offense. I mean, it could be a high-scoring game. It really could be. But I like Duke just a little bit more. I think they own the defensive advantage here. Manny Diaz, defensive-minded coach with a lot of guys coming back. Mensah's going to get better with each passing week. Was phenomenal as a freshman last year with Tulane. They get the job done on their home turf. And then they play Virginia Tech in the season finale. I mean, look, you could argue, right, that Virginia could win this game. It's at home. I mean, it feels like on paper these two teams are even, but I can't pick Virginia here. I mean, God, they're 2-23 against the Hokies since 1999. Their last win came back in 2019. That was in massive upset fashion. I mean, they were a pretty good squad in 19, but still, I can't pick them to beat Virginia Tech when Virginia Tech has absolutely owned them year in and year out. Even last year when the Hokies weren't all that good, and they were beat up, and they were limping into the postseason, limping into the end of the regular season, they still lost. Virginia did 37-17. That was as good of a time as ever to beat your rival, and they couldn't do it. Lost by 20. So, and they allowed 456 yards of offense in that game, by the way. Keep that in mind. So I just can't do it. Despite having home field advantage, despite already clinching a bowl game, despite having arguably the best team Tony Elliott's had, still can't pick them to beat Virginia Tech. Just can't do it. 2-23 since 99. But at that point, it doesn't matter. Yes, you're heartbroken that you can't still beat your rival. That's frustrating. But the silver lining is that's not like that game determines if you go bowling or not. That would, like last year, that would hurt even more. 6-6 for Virginia. They're going to the postseason. I firmly believe that. The best team that Tony Elliott had. And look, if you look at the schedule, maybe you disagree with some of the losses. Maybe you think they pull off the upset over Florida State. Maybe you think they finally beat Virginia Tech. Maybe you think they can beat Duke. Maybe they can beat UNC. I mean, this is one of those weird teams where you look at it and you go, they could easily go, 4-8, 5-7 and miss out and Tony Elliott's gone. But you also look at it and say, if things really go their way and the offense pans out and the defense plays as better as we think they can be, maybe they can win as many as 8 games. Virginia Tech's got a very wide range in terms of what their record could be. But to me, the safest bet is just picking them to go bowling. Got them at 6-6. I feel confident in that pick. Massive year for the Cavaliers. They should be pumped knowing that. Chance at a winning season. Tony Elliott around for one more year, at least, in Charlottesville. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to those expert picks. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers year in and year out. Do not miss out on those. Don't miss out on our weekly newsletters either, also over on thegridironexpert.com. The link for it, again, down in the description below. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.